Right. So in the meantime, I would love to hear where everyone is tuning in from today. If you feel so comfortable to share that information in the chat or what industries we have here, would love to get an idea. Amazing. We have Mexico, Austin, Texas, Colorado, Lisbon, South Africa, all over. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Thank you guys so much for filling this out. So happy to have you all here. My name's Maria. This is so cool. So glad to see everyone joining. All right, to just jump into it and get started because we do have a lot to cover. My name's Maria. I'm a customer experience advocate here at monday.com. I want to thank everyone for joining our new features webinar. We have many exciting new features to share and present to you today. You should be able to hear and see me right now, but if at any point in the webinar you do not see the screen or hear my voice, please let me know in that chat box, just so I'm able to make sure we can get that back on track. Additionally, you'll see next to the chat box that we have a Q&A box ready for all of your questions that you have during or after the presentation. I have some wonderful colleagues here with me today named Jenna, Monique, and Brett, who will be helping me with the questions, as there are a lot of you, which we're so happy about. So again, please be sure to post those questions in the Q&A box specifically, just so that we have one place where we're able to address all of them. So let's go ahead and jump in, as we do have a lot to cover today. Just to give you a quick overview of some of the highlights of what we'll be covering, we will begin by talking about the process of importing to an existing board through an Excel sheet and how that is improved. We'll also talk about working with files, some board view improvements that we've made recently, a new feature called Baseline, which we're super excited about. We're also going to touch on accessibility improvements that we've made and finish off with a spotlight of 2 of our monday.com apps. So additionally, after that, we'll go right into the Q&A session where we'll be able to answer your questions. Again, just as a quick reminder to put those questions in the Q&A box and to let me know if you can't hear or see me at any time. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into monday.com from here. Okay. Great. So first, I wanted to focus on how we've invested in the infrastructure of our boards and dashboards to make loading time much faster across your account. So after receiving some special attention, the performance of boards and dashboards just got even better. So if you're using boards with thousands of items, or if you have hundreds of columns, formulas, or even sub-items on your board, you can expect to see dramatic load time improvements in these different areas. Overall, we're glad to give you some time back to help increase your efficiency on the platform. We're now going to move into some of the changes on the board level and the board views specifically. To get started, we've made importing to an existing board from Excel even easier. So the functionality is amazing when you're already working on an existing board and you want to update your data with information that lives in a spreadsheet. So I'm going to walk through the whole process of importing data to an existing board, but this month's main improvements are in how you're able to manage duplicates and in mapping the columns over during this process. So these changes will help to make the process of importing even easier and more streamlined in your account. So right now we're on our contacts board where I have my sales contacts. And what I want to do is import my latest data set for these contacts in the board. One of the most important things I want to ensure is that I'm not going to be left with any duplicates for each contact, and that instead I can simply update the data with the new data for each of my contacts. Prior to this process, you were only able to manage duplicates by matching columns that were not the item name. So other columns, maybe a status column or an email, but not specifically the item name. And now we've upgraded this feature so that you can manage your duplicates based on multiple column types, including the item name itself. So first, how we're going to get to this option is by clicking on this down arrow and going to import new items. And our options here are we're able to either drag and drop an Excel sheet into the board, or we can manually upload it from the computer. From there, the system will ask you to start the process of mapping data. So we've created a new feature that will help intuitively and automatically map the columns for you. So first, you're just going to make sure that you're choosing which column from the file specifically will appear as the item name. So this leftmost column over here. And in my case, that's going to be the name of the client or individual. From there, when importing, automatically now these fields will be mapped over. All you have to do is match the column titles exactly. So you can see that in Excel, it's the status column, which is matching to my status column here. This is also case sensitive, so you do want to be sure that the column titles match exactly. And when they do, you can see that this great new feature saves you time as you're importing to your board. So if you had more than 4 columns, for example, if you had many columns and these were all automatically mapped, this is a great time saver, and it allows you to not have to click into every single column to map it. After the new feature maps the columns for you, the flow will give you this option of how you're looking to manage your duplicates. So you'll be given 3 options for what to do with duplicates. You can have them be created as new items, you can skip the relevant duplicated items, or you can override the existing items based on the duplicates. So here's where you're able to choose which column will determine if an item is a duplicate. With this new feature enhancement, I'm going to base it off of the item name. So in my use case, in my Excel file, if I have matching item names to the ones that already exist on my board, I'm deciding that I'm going to skip these duplicates. So I don't want to override the information, but in this use case, I just want to skip it and only import what's not a duplicate. Okay, once we've finished the import process, you should be able to see the new items there. And this benefit can be really great when updating your boards during the import process. To move on to our next exciting feature on the board level, I'm going to discuss some changes made when working with files. So the next amazing improvement is you're able to, when you upload a file, you can now open the files preview directly from the uploader that populates on the page. So for example, if I upload a file from my computer into the files column, at the bottom of the screen, the file uploader will populate. So what you're able to do from here is click directly into the preview, and this allows you easy access to the relevant file at any time you need it without having to dig back into your board to find the relevant column or item. The next amazing improvement we've made is regarding importing multiple files at once. So you're now able to drop a folder from your desktop or your computer directly into a files column to import multiple assets or files. So it's important to note that this is supported on most browsers at this time. So for example, if we were uploading relevant files for Jonah Ryan, in this case, we would just go ahead and drag and drop that folder, and multiple files will be uploaded at once. This has many use cases depending on your industry and depending on what you're using your files for, but this improvement is also just a great time saver in working with uploading multiple files and the ease of that. Continuing on with our files feature updates is the ability to copy and paste files within the files column. So for those that use keyboard shortcuts, you're able to just copy a file directly from your computer. All you have to do is click once into the files column and paste it, and it will automatically be uploaded directly into the files column, and that flow has been made just that much easier. This is another fantastic time saver for those of you that continue to work with a lot of files on the platform. And then finally, when we talk about files, we have added a new pop-up that will show when you delete a file. So it's just a reminder to make sure that you want to delete the file. And we added this to ensure that the deletion of files is intentional and to make your life that much less stressful. So this is just the beginning when it comes to improvements to your file management experience on monday.com. And please be sure to stay tuned for future feature updates in this relevant area. I'm now going to move over to a board, which is where we receive our incoming projects and requests from clients. So these clients submit their request for a new project through a monday.com form. Once they fill out the form, those items and those projects automatically get populated into the board exactly like this. So this next new feature should bring a lot of joy to your day when you're marking something as done. This new feature that we've added is our done status automation. So marking things as done is now more satisfying than ever, and we all love that feeling. Here's a quick demonstration of what it looks like. If I change one of my statuses to done, we get this nice little animation that pops up. So let's continue on by looking at some board view improvements. So this month we made some feature updates in the Kanban, the form, and the Gantt board views. So as a refresher, board views allow you to see the data in your board in multiple ways outside of the standard board view that we see here. Let's look at the recent improvements that we made on Kanban specifically. So this board view allows you to organize your items by status that are coming from your board. And it's a very popular way of managing your tasks, which move through different status and different stages to reach completion. So you now have the ability to add even more columns to what is shown on the Kanban card here. So the two most recent updates are that you can now add numbers and timeline columns to the Kanban card, giving it even more context about each item without having to click in and open up the item itself. So for example, from here, we're able to pull in any of these columns that we want just by selecting and deselecting them and pulling in the relevant information from here. As with the other columns in this card, you're able to edit the values directly from the Kanban view, and this will be changed in the board. So for example, if I wanted to change this status, it will be changed in the board when I go back to my main table. So it's a really great way to visualize your tasks, your different projects and clients, and to understand where they all lie within this flow. Great. So while I'm on this board, given that this is where we receive our project requests from our clients, we're going to take advantage of the board of the forms view. So our form view is a very powerful tool in terms of being able to collect information from outside of your monday.com account. And the information, again, will automatically populate into the board itself. So the improvement we've made is for when we're looking at using a date column within our form. So until now, the date column was just this drop down where you had to choose the month, date, and year from a drop down. And now we have what's called a date picker. So meaning you're able to choose the relevant date from a drop down calendar that you see here. You can obviously move between the months and years in this way. It's definitely a much more smoother and intuitive experience for those that are filling out the form and who are using this feature often. Okay, great. So now we're going to move on to the project timeline board. On this board, we are working on tracking multiple timelines as they relate to our different projects. So the first new feature is our ability to look at these timelines in a clear and visual way using our Gantt board view. So when there are multiple date and timeline columns in our board, we can distinguish now within the Gantt view between these different timelines. So what we are going to do is color by specifically the timeline. And you can see I have 3 different date or timeline columns here, and they're all different colors. So the real benefit for this is when working with a horizontal workflow, you can now distinguish between different date and timeline columns within the Gantt view itself by using this coloring function. So overall, this gives a great visualization for when looking to understand your workflow and how all of those timelines come together and overlap one another. You also have other options as to how you're able to color and group the items on your board as well. Additionally, as with the other board views, you can decide which date and timeline columns you want to be pulled in here. So on the board, if we go back to it, we are tracking the budget across multiple members of our team that are working on this project. So we've now added an even deeper layer of functionality to our chart view and widget when using numbers columns. So this budget is a numbers column. Obviously, numbers columns can be used for more than just cost or data in that way. It can be used for resource management, for hours, and many other different functions. So when we go to the chart view on our board, I'm trying to calculate how much budget is assigned to each and every person. So I'm going to use a bar chart. I'm going to pull it in by person. And then in my y-axis, I'm going to use the budget, which is my numbers column. So what's really exciting about this new feature is that you're able to perform functions on these numerical data points. So for example, if I wanted to see the average budget per person, all I would have to do is change the function over to average, and this becomes an average for each and every person. There's also different options here with median, min, max, and so on. This gives you that much more flexibility in terms of what kind of reports you can create based on numerical data held in your board. And I also want to mention that this is the same on the chart widget within the dashboard as well. So that's a really great feature if you're looking to use the charts on the dashboard in addition to the board views. So our next really exciting feature is the baseline feature. This is a brand new feature that has just been released on both the Gantt view and then the Gantt widget as well. So I wanted to show you specifically on the Gantt view how this works. And currently we have our two timelines, and we added this feature to give teams ability to track the planned schedule of a project, or better known as the baseline. So the baseline allows you to compare the actual schedule of the project against this baseline and identify specific delays that come up. So the feature allows managers and team leaders to compare any other state of a project with the initial one and see where it has changed. So in other words, it represents a fixed schedule or an ability to show the scope of a project. You can add the baseline directly from this view. So we are in the Gantt board view, and all I have to do is click on add a new snapshot of the timelines that we have set up. What this will do is when you click that add a new snapshot, the system will duplicate the timeline column and create a new timeline column as well as a formula column. So it doesn't really look to be pulling through at the moment, but you can see that the two new columns have been made here. Okay, there it is. So it's important to note that when you press that button, every single time you press it, two new columns will appear in your board. So just for your reference, in case all of a sudden your board looks a little different, this is the reason why. So one of the columns represents the planned timeline, and the other one represents a calculation between the difference of the planned and the actual timeline. So the new timeline column will be labeled baseline, as you can see here, and a baseline was created for both timelines. So this is my original timeline that I had on my board. This was my second one, and both have been created from that baseline. So if we go back into our Gantt view, you're able to see the baseline together with the actual timeline. So also, if I went ahead and saw that the Start Creative First Drafts item was taking a little longer, the system will automatically change the color there. So based on the baseline, you're able to see that this task is taking a little bit longer. And then if we go back to the board, you can see here that the difference has been calculated and that these timelines have been changed based on the dragging and dropping that I've done within the Gantt widget here. So this is a really great feature to give you some additional insight into what your timelines look like and how to track them over time. being able to compare how the timeline changes based on its actual flow. Now we're going to jump into the dashboard to show you an awesome new improvement with the table widget. So if you ever felt like the table widget showed you too many columns or a little bit too much information, you now have the ability to select which columns you want to be shown in the board. So in this use case, I'm pulling in 3 boards into this dashboard, and the widget settings are going to give me the option to pick and choose exactly which columns I want to be shown in the table view. So you're able to choose for each and every board on your dashboard, and just so it only shows the ones that you're really interested in seeing. And all you would have to do is just unselect if you don't think they're relevant here. This just does provide you and your team some further flexibility when using this widget to make those important reports on your board. Next, I wanted to cover some important accessibility changes that we've made to the platform to make it more inclusive for all of our users. So this is a super important initiative for us, and it's just the beginning of what's to come. We have made the surface, the quick search, and left pane of the platform all accessible by screen reader and keyboard navigation. So individuals are now able to move between boards and workspaces, search for boards, and switch pages just by using the keyboard and screen reader. And on the board level, we now fully support screen reader and keyboard navigation in liking and responding to updates on a board. So we'll be continuing to build out our support for these features within the rest of the platform in the upcoming future. This is definitely a super important initiative to us. In the final section of the demonstration part of this webinar, I did want to focus on improvements and provide a quick spotlight for our monday.com apps and apps marketplace. So firstly, the apps marketplace can be located from the avatar window. It's a very robust marketplace. You're able to search or browse by specific categories, as well as where they would integrate with on the platform. So the first update is regarding the item card app. So we now support the ability to view and add sub-items, as well as an improved connected boards column experience within the item card app. So if I go to my item card for this specific item, I have a few sub-items that are now being shown here. So sub-items will be visible below the main items. And from the item card, you're able to filter which columns you want to be shown for the sub-items. You can also add a new sub-item directly from here, and as well as click into the items for more information. So this is a great added benefit that we now have within our item card view. Additionally, underneath the sub-items, you're able to see connected boards columns. So in this item, I am connecting this item to a specific item on my incoming projects board. I'm also mirroring over this information. So what the item card is doing is showing me the item that this item is connected to within the incoming projects board. So it's showing me all of that information, and it's making it also pretty clear that this is from a different board. So we're connecting boards here, and it's letting me know that this information is related. So we wanted to make sure that the item card app view is able to support all of the relevant columns so that you can stay within this one app view to see all of the relevant information. So it's a really great feature if you haven't checked it out yet, and it's accessible just from the update section. If you are adding it for the first time, you can add the view from there. To transition to our final section, we're going to be highlighting some monday.com apps that have been developed by others outside of our monday.com team. So these apps build on top of the platform and allow you to elevate your workflow in new and exciting ways. It's important to note that these 2 apps we're going to talk about were not developed by our monday.com team. To this end, we do not have any control over its functionality and cannot provide support on how to best set them up. We have, though, reviewed all of the apps in our marketplace, against our security and privacy guidelines, but we can't fully support it at this time. So the first app we are going to talk about is the workflow app. So the workflow app allows you to bring some additional order into how the columns on your board are filled out. And you can go to the apps marketplace to find the workflow app with a lot more information about what this does from here. So what it does is allow you to set up a structured step-by-step visual workflow with required columns as well as customizable permissions. So this gives you the ability to simplify the user's journey as they only need to click next, and the flow that you've set up within the board and within the app will do the rest. So in terms of how this can help managers or board owners, it ensures that permitted personnel are performing specific steps, as well as ensuring that your team is going through a structured process, filling out all the required columns that are necessary. So the benefit to this approach and using this app would be that you're able to structure the data entering process. So for example, I added this app to my board, and what it is following the order of my status columns here. So every contact on my board starts at working on it, it goes to then initial contact. After the initial contact, we are finishing off the relationship. So how I would configure this is by setting up the flow. When the status changes from working to initial contact, we can set required columns that are necessary to fill out when changing the status in this case. We also can set permissions based on the board and what we already have on who is able to make these different changes. And then once we set up these rules for the entire flow, we can preview it and then use it on our board. The final app is the PandaDoc app, which allows you to generate proposals, quotes, and contracts using customizable options to make the experience super specific to your company and what you want your documents to look like. So here's the app and how you're able to find it. Both of these apps do allow you to have a trial to try out these apps, make sure they're what you're looking for, but they are developed by teams outside of our company. So with this app, you're able to create new documents within monday.com, as well as send and view documents that you've sent out. So this app allows you to customize your files and can give you some greater flexibility to create personalized documents within the account. So to take a look at this view, we are able to go to the update section and then add the view for PandaDoc specifically here. Then if we wanted to create a new document for this company or this individual, we can create a template from here. And this is where it gets very customizable. So you can put text fields, images, videos, signatures, whatever other relevant information you want to build out this document. And then you can go ahead and send it out directly from monday.com to the individual. So this app is great if you're looking for a way to customize your files and send out more personalized templates to the individuals that you're communicating with files. And I would definitely recommend checking it out if this sounds like something you're interested in. So this does conclude the demonstration portion of the webinar. I'm just going to take a 30-second water break, and then we'll come back and get started with the Q&A portion.